Hello and welcome to today's Parent Chat. My name is Rihanna Redman. I'm an infant and early childhood mental health consultant at Children's Resource Center in Bowling Green, Ohio. Today's Parent Chat is about responding to your child's sensory preferences. So, just to start off, I want to explain that everyone has sensory preferences. So, as adults, we have the ability to problem solve and we can make decisions for ourselves. So, if we don't like something, we are able to change it. We don't have to do something if we don't like that, or if we don't prefer something, we can choose what we do prefer instead. So adults, we have so much say and freedom to choose, what we eat, what we wear, and what we do. Whereas children, they might not have the skills yet to meet their needs in different ways. So they might use challenging behavior. And children might not like the same things that we like. So we may have a preference for something, but that could be different for the child. They might prefer something different than us. So again, when we realize that children might not have the skills yet to meet their needs, so they might use challenging behavior. And all behavior is communication. So there's three typical reasons that children typically use challenging behavior, and those reasons are to avoid or escape something or someone, to obtain something. So maybe they are trying to obtain a toy, or they're trying to obtain maybe attention or connection from a caregiver, or they're trying to change the level of stimulation. So the level of stimulation in the environment. So maybe they are trying to change the stimulation because they want more sensory input, or maybe they're trying to change the level of stimulation because they want less sensory input. So, something to remember with sensory preferences is just to look for patterns. So, most children are able to adapt to different environments. They're able to handle it if they don't like something or if they prefer something else. They're able to kind of cope with that feeling of discomfort, or, something that they don't like. They're able to adapt to that. We want to remember to address basic needs first. So sometimes challenging behavior can stem because children might be hungry or tired, or they're feeling irritable because maybe they're hangry. So we want to address those basic needs first, and then we can kind of start looking at the environment as maybe a factor for the challenging behavior. So again, look for patterns. If you're noticing that frequent challenging behavior is occurring in specific environments or during specific times, then we can consider trying to make adjustments to meet children's needs or to accommodate for their specific sensory preferences. And just some examples of sensory preferences. So, we all have senses, and so we're going to have preferences for each of those senses. So, the first would be touch. So, sometimes children really like it when they can squish their hands into, paint or dirt outside. They really like that kind of messy or squishy feeling, maybe playing with Play Doh or with moon sand. They like that sensation. And then there's some children that really don't like that and they kind of avoid that sensation. Maybe some children don't like it if their clothing is itchy, or if their clothing is really tight to their body, or maybe they don't like having the tag in the back of their shirt. So these are those kind of sensory preferences that are related to touch. For taste, maybe children have sensory preferences based on the taste or the texture of the food. So as an adult, I don't like to eat tomatoes, and it's because of the texture. I love the taste of tomato ketchup or tomato like pasta sauce and that kind of thing, but I really don't like the texture of tomatoes. So I choose as an adult not to eat them. But sometimes children, they don't have the words or the skills to tell us that they don't like the texture of something. And so we might see some challenging behavior when they're trying to communicate that need to us. Another example of taste could be that maybe the food is too sour, or maybe it's too spicy, or maybe sometimes children have a sensory preference for crunchy food. So maybe if you're noticing that children like to either chew maybe gum or crunch on a sucker or something, carrots, those types of crunchy foods, they might just prefer those to maybe the squishier food. For sight, sometimes we notice that, it's really bright when there are those, the like hospital lighting or that fluorescent kind of lighting. Sometimes that can be really bright and we don't prefer that lighting. Maybe we like the low lighting of, a side table lamp or something like that at home. And as adults, we can make those decisions. We can make those choices that we want to have low lighting at home. Sometimes a sensory preference for sound, it could be really noisy and we want it to be quieter. But as children, sometimes they're not able to express that it's too noisy or that it's too quiet, and they feel that it's kind of, um, it's not meeting their preference, that it's either too noisy or too quiet, and they can't exactly tell us with their words what it is that is, wrong. So for an example, for sound, if we're noticing, again, we're going to look for patterns. So if we know that the behavior isn't stemming because they're trying to obtain or avoid something, if we're noticing that every time the TV is on and it's really loud, then we're noticing those challenging behaviors. Then it could be, again, related to the environment. So maybe if we turn the volume on the TV down, then maybe the challenging behavior would reduce, or maybe we wouldn't see that specific challenging behavior anymore at that specific time. But again, look for patterns just to see, the frequency of the behavior, if it is something that is occurring specifically because of maybe that sensory preference. Another example is smell. So maybe the scent in the room is too strong, or maybe if you have an aversion to certain smells. As an adult, I don't really like the smell of onions, so I choose not to cook with onions. But sometimes children, again, maybe they don't like the smell of something, but they can't exactly use their words to explain or communicate that in a way that is appropriate. So as we kind of all know about the other senses, taste, touch, smell, sight, but there's also these other senses that children have sensory preferences for as well, and they are spatial awareness and position and balance. So for spatial awareness, sometimes children might really enjoy having tight hugs or, really squeezing onto someone, or maybe they kind of avoid those sensations. Maybe some children don't like to be really close. They don't like to sit on someone's lap or have really tight hugs. And then for position and balance, some children like to rock back and forth. They like to spin or swing, or sometimes, hang upside down. And then there's other children that really kind of, they might be physically cautious. So they kind of avoid those types of behavior or sensations. So again, this is something that we really have to read children's cues to kind of understand maybe where the challenging behavior could be coming from. And again, we need to, observe how they respond to new activities, through their experience, kind of if we notice that every time we are finger painting and we notice the challenging behavior, then we can kind of see if um, maybe their cues to us as saying that they don't like the finger painting. So maybe we can offer an adjustment or an accommodation. And so maybe we can, instead of finger painting, we can use a paintbrush or something like that. So again, just being mindful and reading children's cues to notice kind of what they prefer or don't like. And then we can acknowledge those feelings. So a lot of times we notice children's behavior because that's the thing that is kind of on the outside. That's what they're showing us. But really, all behavior is trying to communicate either a need or feelings. So, and again, we've kind of said children may not have the skills to communicate what it is that is upsetting them. So they use their behavior to express those feelings or express those specific needs. So one thing that we can do to help with that is just to acknowledge those feelings. So again, after we're reading children's cues, we can acknowledge those feelings. We can describe what we are seeing. So maybe they have furrowed brows. They don't like that. We can name that feeling. You know, maybe you're feeling uncomfortable, or maybe you are feeling upset or frustrated. And then we can just acknowledge those feelings. So it's okay to have feelings, you know, but we want to express them in a positive way. So something that we can do to kind of accommodate for sensory preferences is to incorporate sensory play. And sensory play can inspire curiosity and creativity. It's really helpful to help children manage and express their feelings in positive ways. And it's really important for development. So, you know, children can develop their fine motor and gross motor skills through sensory play. They're learning through these experiences with different sensory sensory play. And we know that experiences really build children's brain architecture. So they're learning through these specific experiences. Something that we can do as adults is just be flexible. So if possible, we can find ways to accommodate for children's preferences, or we can offer those sensory experiences to children to help meet those specific needs or preferences. So, and we want to find ways that we can reasonably adapt to meet their needs. So sometimes we might think, you know, if we do notice that we're seeing that frequent challenging behavior when we're in maybe the grocery store, and we're noticing that, you know, maybe children don't like it when the lights are really bright, or, you know, sometimes that those fluorescent lights have that kind of buzzing sound, and that can be really hard to it kind of distracts us, or it can be hard to ignore. So sometimes we might see challenging behavior, and reasonably to kind of adapt to that, maybe we can wear sunglasses inside the grocery store, or, you know, maybe we can wear headphones if it's too noisy, or if we can't ignore the kind of noises that are happening in the background. You know, for the other kind of senses that spatial awareness, maybe we can jump on a trampoline, or maybe there could be certain times of day that maybe we're allowed to jump on the couch to kind of get those wiggles out, or to get that energy out, because we're needing that kind of sensory input. And then again, sometimes we have preferences where maybe we need to chew chew a crunchy snack to kind of um, help meet that preference or meet that need. And so again, this is something where if we're noticing frequent challenging behavior at specific times of day or in specific environments, that's when we can kind of notice what's going on in the environment, or what kind of accommodations we can make in the environment to help reduce those challenging behaviors. Another thing to keep in mind is parents are the experts of their children. So parents know if there is something that maybe is getting in the way of children's functioning in their daily life. And if that's the case, you know, talk to your pediatrician. So if you do have any kind of concerns about sensory preferences that might be getting in the way of your children's functioning in daily life, that could be something that you know, research for yourself, or again, talk to your pediatrician about. You guys are the experts of your children, so you know kind of what is going on and what is helpful to them, or maybe what doesn't really work for them. So this last page is just for resources. My name is Rihanna Ridman. You can email me at rihannar@crcwoodcounty.org. A few of the strategies came from the Devereaux Center for Resilient Children and the Center on the Social and Emotional Foundations for Early Learning. And then I also found some information from these two blogs, the understood.org and yourkidstable.com. There were some really great examples of incorporating sensory play, or incorporating those sensory experiences for children at both of those blogs. And then lastly, please like us on Facebook at CRC Infant and Early Childhood Connection. Thank you.